Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into former President Donald Trump's latest and perhaps most ambitious policy promise yet, his newly revealed plan to restore the American dream by unlocking 2 million lots across the country for new home construction. This announcement has sent waves through both political and economic circles, reigniting one of the most pressing debates in the United States today: how to fix the nation's housing crisis and bring back affordable home ownership for millions of Americans who feel left behind. Trump's words carried the tone of revival. He said it's time to rebuild the American dream from the ground up. Literally, Trump described his plan as a revolutionary push to make homes affordable again, to give young families and working-class Americans a fair shot at buying property, and to open up land that's been locked away by what he called unnecessary government control and red tape. According to Trump, the new proposal would free up millions of acres of unused federal and state land that could be rapidly converted into residential housing. He claims these 2 million new lots would be targeted toward middle-income families, veterans, and first-time home buyers. Not the elite, not foreign investors, but everyday Americans struggling with rising rents and impossible mortgage rates. He emphasized that America was once a nation of builders and homeowners, but has now become a nation of renters and debt holders. His message was clear: the system is broken, and he's promising to fix it fast. Trump's announcement comes at a time when the housing crisis is reaching alarming levels. Median home prices in many parts of the country have more than doubled over the past decade. Construction costs are soaring, and supply remains dangerously low. Cities like Los Angeles, Miami, and Austin have become unaffordable even for professionals with stable incomes. Meanwhile, rural and suburban areas face massive zoning barriers that make new housing projects nearly impossible to launch. Trump argues that his plan is the bold step needed to restore balance. He said bureaucrats have sat on land that could be used for homes for decades, and it's time to give that land back to the people. He portrayed the policy as both economic reform and moral duty, saying that the American dream should not be reserved for the privileged few, but reignited for every hardworking citizen. The proposal is framed around 3 pillars. First, releasing land from government control. Second, cutting red tape that slows down development. And third, incentivizing local construction through private sector partnerships. He also mentioned that he would direct federal agencies to review underused lands within 90 days and begin the permitting process immediately. He vowed to eliminate what he called housing choke points, the endless approvals and environmental reviews that delay construction for years. Trump said his administration would replace that with fast, tracked permits, transparency, and accountability so that new homes could start breaking ground within months. Supporters say this could unleash a new housing boom similar to the post-war expansion that defined the 1950s and 60s, when America built suburbs, schools, and roads at record pace. Economists aligned with Trump's campaign argue that freeing up land and cutting bureaucracy would not only lower housing prices, but also stimulate millions of new jobs in construction, engineering, manufacturing, and real estate markets across the country. Trump said every new home built will mean one more family living the dream, and one more worker earning a good paycheck building that dream with their own hands. He framed it as both patriotic and practical, but critics are not convinced. Housing policy experts from both sides of the aisle have expressed concern that Trump's plan oversimplifies a deeply complex issue. They warn that simply unlocking land without addressing infrastructure costs could lead to overexpansion, traffic congestion, and strained utilities in many regions. Others argue that the plan favors developers who stand to profit from fast, tracked projects rather than ensuring long-term affordability for low and middle-income families. Environmental groups have also raised red flags, pointing out that using public land for mass construction could threaten local ecosystems, wildlife, and water supply. Some analysts even fear that large-scale suburban growth could worsen urban sprawl and make climate targets harder to meet. Trump, however, dismissed these concerns as political noise. He said his administration would maintain environmental standards but not allow them to be weaponized against progress. He argued that decades of overregulation have paralyzed American builders and made housing a luxury instead of a necessity. He said America doesn't have a land problem, it has a leadership problem. During his rally, Trump delivered this message with fiery confidence, saying, "Under my plan, every American family will once again have a chance to own a piece of their country, not just rent it from someone else." The crowd erupted with chants of "Build it now," and described his plan as the largest housing freedom initiative in modern history, and promised that it would mark the beginning of a new golden age, of a new golden age of construction and prosperity. He tied the proposal directly to his campaign slogan, promising to make America dream again. He said home ownership is not just an economic goal, it's the foundation of a stable and thriving society. The timing of the announcement is no coincidence. With the election approaching, Trump is doubling down on the issues that resonate most with middle America. Housing affordability ranks near the top of voter concerns, especially among younger generations struggling to save for down payments and families watching rent consume half their income. Political strategists say this plan could be one of his most effective campaign messages because it blends nostalgia with tangible economic relief. Trump's message is that he doesn't just want to talk about the dream. He wants to build it literally. Democrats and administration officials were quick to fire back, calling the plan unrealistic and potentially reckless. They argue that releasing federal land without proper urban planning could backfire, leading to speculation, infrastructure collapse, and low-quality development. Some members of Congress pointed out that federal lands are often located far from cities and job centers, making them impractical for housing without massive investment in roads, schools, and public transport. But Trump countered that the government has used that excuse for too long. He said America once built highways across deserts and railroads through mountains. It can surely build homes on open land. Economists are divided. Some say that if managed properly, the plan could genuinely help cool the overheated housing market by boosting supply. Others say it's a long shot, given the cost of infrastructure and the coordination needed between federal, state, and local governments. Still, they agree on one thing. Trump's announcement has forced the housing issue back into the national spotlight, where it has been largely ignored despite being one of the most serious economic pressures facing American families today. Trump also emphasized that the initiative would prioritize American workers and American materials. He said that under his plan, construction projects would favor domestic steel, lumber, and manufacturing to fuel not only housing growth, but also American industry. He argued that by building homes with American hands and materials, the nation would reduce dependence on foreign supply chains while boosting local economies. He described it as a ripple effect. Every home built creates jobs for carpenters, electricians, plumbers, drivers, and factory workers. It's not just housing, it's an entire economic ecosystem. To further support this initiative, Trump said he would introduce a new tax incentive for first-time home buyers and middle-class families, making home ownership more financially attainable. He mentioned revamping mortgage insurance programs and cutting interest barriers for veterans and low-income households. The goal, according to him, is not just to build homes, but to make sure those homes are within reach. The speech also took aim at Wall Street investors who have been buying up single family homes across the country, driving up prices and squeezing families out of the market. Trump promised to crack down on corporate real estate giants. He said the American dream should belong to American families, not hedge funds and not foreign investors. He called for stricter limits on institutional home ownership and promised that under his leadership, ordinary people would once again have the first chance to buy the homes they live in. The response online was immediate. Conservative commentators hailed the plan as visionary, a potential game changer for the housing market. Progressive analysts called it pure political theater without substance. But even critics acknowledged one thing: Trump's ability to dominate the conversation remains unmatched. Social media exploded with hashtags like #buildthedream and Fade Housing Freedom as supporters shared clips of his speech, calling it the boldest housing proposal in decades. Analysts note that this announcement could put significant pressure on current policymakers who have struggled to address the housing shortage despite years of debate. Experts from the National Association of Home Builders and other housing groups cautiously welcomed the idea of reducing regulatory burdens, saying it could indeed unlock long, delayed projects and stimulate construction in critical markets. They warn, however, that implementation will be the real challenge, navigating between federal oversight, local zoning, and community approval could determine whether this vision turns into reality or fades like so many campaign promises before it. Trump's plan also resonates culturally beyond economics. It taps into the deep emotional core of the American identity, the idea that every citizen should have a home, a patch of land, a place to raise their children, and pass something down. He tied the housing issue to larger themes of dignity, family, and national pride. He said a strong nation starts with strong homes, and that's what we're going to rebuild. As the rally closed, Trump declared that the dream has been stolen by inflation, interest rates, and weak leadership. But it will be restored by hard work, courage, and a return to common sense. He promised that his first 100 days in office would focus on breaking ground on new housing sites across multiple states, and that families would start to see progress within a single year. His closing words were, "This is not a promise. It's a mission." Political observers say that if Trump can convince voters his housing plan is feasible, it could reshape the election conversation, shifting focus from inflation and foreign policy to domestic revival. Housing is deeply personal. It affects every voter, regardless of party, race, or age. And that's exactly why this announcement matters so much. The housing crisis is one of the few issues that crosses political lines, and Trump is betting that his message of action, simplicity, and ownership will resonate. In many ways, this proposal also reflects his broader campaign theme, rebuilding America not just physically, but economically and spiritually. He wants to rebrand home ownership as a right, not a privilege, positioning himself once again as the candidate of aspiration rather than administration. His approach is direct, unpolished, and designed for impact. He speaks to the frustrations that ordinary Americans feel when they look at a system that seems to reward speculation instead of hard work. As the debate unfolds, economists, developers, and voters alike will be watching closely to see whether this plan gains traction or fades into political noise. What's undeniable is that Trump has once again managed to take a complex policy problem and turn it into a movement framed around one powerful emotional idea: the restoration of the American dream. In the coming weeks, expect more details from his campaign outlining where these 2 million lots would come from, how they'll be developed, and who will qualify for the new home programs. There are still many unanswered questions, but one thing is clear: this issue isn't going away anytime soon. With housing affordability at record lows and frustration at record highs, Trump's announcement has put home ownership back at the heart of American politics. In the days following the announcement, economists and political strategists have begun dissecting what Trump's housing proposal could actually mean for the nation's future. Some see it as a spark capable of igniting a long-awaited construction boom that could stabilize the housing market, create millions of jobs, and lower rent costs nationwide. Others believe it's a risky gamble that underestimates logistical, environmental, and financial challenges. Yet, even skeptics admit the plan's timing is strategic. It hits directly at the economic anxiety of millions of Americans who feel locked out of home ownership and disillusioned with traditional politics. For Trump's supporters, the message is simple and powerful: rebuild the dream, restore the promise, reclaim the future. Whether the plan succeeds or not, it has already reignited the national conversation about who gets to live the American dream and how far leaders are willing to go to make it real again. And as the nation braces for another heated election season, both supporters and critics will be asking the same question: can America really rebuild the dream, or has that dream already changed forever? For now, all eyes remain on Trump's next move, because if this plan takes shape, it could mark the beginning of one of the largest housing transformations in modern U.S. history. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned as we continue to track this developing story and bring you the latest on how this proposal could impact the economy, jobs, and families across the country. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on every major shift shaping America's future.